My background is in anthropology and archaeology, and I worked for the Park Service as a park archaeologist for about 7 years now, and I've just recently transferred over to education. This is an incredible park. It's absolutely incredible. I love this place. I'm going to be here for the rest of my life. So I'm really excited to take you into sites. I'm excited to take visitors into any site, but this site is really, really special. We only give tours of this site every few years, and they're always going to be in small groups of about 10 people. So congratulations on getting a ticket.
Wow, that's a lot.
It was a feat.
It was, right.
Yeah.
I mean, right now there's not very many ticket tours in general since Cliff House is closed. So you guys probably had to like click.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
directly
you
at
get
the time.
right on it. Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of love this time of year when we're only offering the backcountry tours because you guys really want to be here. You guys really did the planning. You guys took your time. You know, this is what you want to do versus a public tour where I think people are you know, they kind of stumble into it, not fully realizing just how amazing it is, and it's my job to convince them how amazing it is. But you guys are probably just primed and ready to see this site. So before we go down, I do want to start talking about ancestral Pueblo history up here at the Mesa top, and I'm just kind of curious, where are you guys in terms of knowing about ancestral Pueblo history?
I'm an art history major. I just graduated with a bachelor's.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so and you've
I've in a couple of my survey classes.
awesome.
Yeah.
Whereabouts did you study?
Missouri.
In Missouri?
Yeah,
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, the art here is incredible. So let's talk a lot about art today.
Yes, I would love that.
Yeah. I mean, the ancestral Pueblo people, their lives revolve around art. Everything they make is just exquisite, and we'll be able to see pottery pieces and stuff in the site, and hopefully some stuff that has designs on it. So, yeah. For the rest of you, where are you guys at in terms of ancestral Pueblo knowledge? Kind of, yeah. Okay, for the hands down
Yeah,
here,
right.
maybe down here. Put your hand down here if you're like, I'm still calling them the Anasazi,
Way above me.
Yeah, that's above. Yeah.
or up here if you're like an archaeologist, a PhD in anthropology.
No, okay.
It happens a lot, actually. Archaeologists come through on my tour and they don't tell me till the very end, and then I'm kind of like racking my brain to make sure I got every date right. No, this is gonna be exciting, and I'll be sure to talk about the general history, but then we'll kind of go on tangents about art and culture and some other more deeper topics. So, but to start out with, everyone is aware that the ancestral Pueblo people are the people who are living here. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So previously, park rangers did use the term Anasazi, and that was a word that archaeologists really created. It was a Navajo word. There were a lot of Navajo workmen who were helping with the excavations, and the Navajo people had a word for the people who were previously on the landscape, and that was Anasazi. So archaeologists adopted that and started to use it over and over again. The Pueblo people today, who are the direct descendants of the people who built Mesa Verde, the cliff dwellings, they have asked the park to stop using the term Anasazi because it created this illusion that they had vanished. You know, a lot of people come to this park with this idea that the Anasazi, you know, the people who lived here, they just disappeared from this landscape. That's partly because rangers directly used to tell that story, but also that term Anasazi, there's not a modern Anasazi group today. And so people would walk away saying, oh, the Anasazi built this, but there are no Anasazi anywhere else, so they must have vanished. So these are Pueblo sites. We're happy to change the terminology to Pueblo or ancestral Pueblo, but that's the reason why Anasazi was the old term, and you still see that on some signage, but that's been actively being removed over the past decade. So the Pueblo people were living here, and they're living here for about 700 years. We find that the first people start settling on this landscape around the year 500 to 600. That's when they start living permanently here. We have evidence that people are moving around the landscape earlier, but in the 500-600s, they're here permanently. What's allowing them to be here permanently?
Food,
Food. What type of food?
both agriculture and
There you go. Yep.
animals.
Yep. And exactly. When people first start settling here, it's because of corn. They now have corn. They're farming.
But there's no water.
There's very little water.
Right.
There's definitely water.
Right.
Yeah, this does not seem like the best landscape to grow corn, right? So
Right.
looking across the mesa, yeah, that is not corn country in
Sure.
our mindset.
Yes.
Not in there.
Right. But actually, the Hopi, who are Pueblo culture in Arizona, they still dryland farming very successfully on their mesas, which are even more dry. So they're farming corn, beans, and squash, primarily corn. Corn comes up as a trade item from Central America, and we see it in the area long before they're depending on it solely. Because it's going to take a while to adapt to this high altitude dry area. So you're right. This is like our giant sweet corn today. You plant that in the ground, that's probably not going to grow. But they had dozens of varieties that were well adapted. And the corn varieties look a little different than the variety of corn, the single variety of corn we're used to today.
Right.
So it's a little deceiving. We're actually not a desert. We actually get about 18 inches of precipitation a year. Deserts are like 12 or less. So we have more moisture than a typical desert landscape.
Right.
Also, we have the monsoons. Are you guys familiar with the monsoons? So we get a snowpack in the winter. That provides moisture in the soil. That's great. You plant in spring, you still have that moisture you're using. And then you have a couple dry months, but come July, we get regular thunderstorms that pass through the landscape. That's going to be enough to dryland farm. And in fact, the landscape here is so fertile that the population of the Mesa Verde by the 1100s rises to about 5,000 people. In this greater region, we now know, based on the number of archaeological sites, there are 40 to 50,000 people in the Four Corners area in the 1100s.
Wow.
That's 3 times as many people as today. It's incredible. So yes, it doesn't look, and from our standards today, it doesn't seem like a great place to farm, but they're going to be using certain techniques to make it work. First off, this mesa is particularly good to farm because we're not a mesa. The Spanish totally misnamed this landscape. Mesas are flat, right? Table. We're not flat. We slope to the south by about 6 degrees. And you probably noticed that when you drove up the Park Road, you winded up to the top to Park Point, you're at 8,500 feet, and then you slowly make your way down. We're actually about the same elevation here as Cortez, the town that you probably started in. So we slope to the south. So sloping and to the south is going to provide several advantages to farmers. How would that be advantageous? Sunlight. Yep. Sunlight and water drainage.
Collection of water.
You have predictable water routes. Up here at 8,500 feet, you're actually going to have more moisture, more rainfall, more snow. That is going to run down predictable drainage routes. Up here in the middle area of the park, so we're down here where it's really good to farm, but right here in the middle area, you also have more farming communities, and they built reservoirs, collecting the water as it ran down the mesa. Down here, we have lots of check dams. As water moves down predictable drainage routes, they build walls, and that's going to collect the water behind those walls and bring in new silt. So they're terrace farming. And then you brought up the sun and the warmth. This landscape, because it tilts south, the soil, everything is just a bit warmer. We have a few extra frost-free weeks to grow corn here than the valleys down below. So this was a bustling place. If I pick up a rock and throw it, I'm going to hit an archaeological site. There are just village after village after village up here on the mesa. So people were farming, building, populations were getting larger and larger and larger until about the 1100s, and that's when people begin moving down to the cliff dwellings. In the 1100s, a segment of the population is going to move down below. So think about the advantages that might exist down below, and we'll talk about it down there, but does anyone have any questions at this point?
So,
it's a lot of history.
Up here,
Covering
they're
700 years.
living in, like we saw the last house that was kind of, I guess, sunken in.
So the very first homes the people are going to build here in the 500s and 600s are called pit houses.
Pit house.
They're half subterranean,
Okay.
and they're built out of sticks and mud. Over the 600 years, though, that they're farming here, you see the technology develop. They go from those pit houses to stone-built masonry pueblos.
So pit house up here is where they got started, and then they moved down and start building into the cliffs.
So they're going to be up here for well, people are utilizing the alcoves previously. We do have some evidence that people are living in the alcoves before the 1100s. But in the 1100s, you have a large segment of the population that decides to move down below. But the majority of the time, people are always going to be living up on the mesa top, and you see the evolution of architecture up here.
Okay.
So you have those pit houses, and pretty soon you see single-course masonry walls. Then you see double-course, and they're building 2-story buildings. And then by the 1100s, they're building 3- and 4-course stone masonry walls and towers extending up 4 stories. What's really cool is that there are a lot of towers in the cliff dwellings. You don't need a tower in a cliff dwelling. A tower is used as a lookout. In a cliff dwelling, you often have little ledges high above with rooms in them. So why are they still building towers? They're building towers on the mesa tops for lookouts, and my assumption is that's what a home looks like. You know, they have a style of architecture, a look of a home, and they take that look of a home and they just bring it down to the cliff dwellings in the 1100s.
But they weren't defensive?
We'll talk about the defensive elements of a cliff dwelling when archaeologists first got here, they thought these were strict forts,
Right.
but we don't believe that to be the case anymore.
Is it because they look like what we would assume a fort looks like a European idea? Like,
Yes.
okay.
The very first archaeologist who was here, who's actually a geologist, his name was Gustav Nordenskjöld from Sweden. And when he comes in, he's taking his Eurocentric mindset, and he thinks these are palaces and forts. That's how we get the name Cliff Palace. And I think to this day, we still, many of us come in with this Western mindset and we think it's strictly defensive. There are elements of defense, absolutely, but we have to rework the story because we don't really have any evidence of large-scale warfare here on the landscape.
It's amazing, like they're building the architecture that's similar to other places of the world, and without.
Yeah.
So how did that all kind of? How did they know?
Yeah,
how to build
and that's
that?
a great question to ask, and I wonder how much of that is just functionality and like the way in which materials come together in formation.
A right angle of a door.
But we'll talk about that down below. But I wanted to talk mostly about farming up here, just to kind of get a sense of what this landscape was like. With 5,000 people on it, you see all the trees across Mesa? I doubt all those trees were there. 5,000 people living on this landscape. You have an occupation period of about 600 to 700 years. Trees are coming down. Fields were being planted. This would have been a really big and bustling landscape of communities very much connected together, not living in isolation. All right, you guys ready to down climb some ladders?
Cool.
All right, so from here we're going to go down this trail. We're going to hit the first ladder. It's about 20-foot ladder. Then we go around the cliffside on a ledge. There is a rope and chain, so it doesn't feel scary. And then we're going to have to down climb some stone steps. This is really cool. This is actually the original route in and out. We're going to down climb some stone steps. They were made bigger by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 20s to accommodate our big feet, so they blasted over the original trail, something we probably wouldn't do today. But once we're down those steps, then you do have to kind of swing your foot over onto another 15-foot ladder or so and down climb it. While you're down climbing the ladder, the second one, look through the rungs and you'll see the original hand and toe holds the couple of people used to climb into this cave.
Oh, wow.
So, all right, let's go.
Gotta make it worth it.
You want me between you and Dad?
Yeah.
You got it. Oh yeah, piece of cake. There you go.
I would be remiss if I didn't.
The worst
take your
part is
time.
going to be getting on and off.
You get a picture of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you're on, you're there.
I try not to be too much of a pain in the ass with cameras.
You got it. Hey, Manny.
Yeah?
Hold up.
You want me to go first?
No.
You got it, babe.
So what if I fall? I don't kill you.
One of us has to get back up top.
Tell the story. I'm GoProing the whole
She was
thing,
so
so we got evidence.
Insurance company will need it.
It's bolted in, so you're good.
Yeah, you're good.
Good job.
The camera time.
Woo! All right.
Is that what I'm going to do? You want to do the original? Oh,
Maybe. You got it. You're doing great. You got it, hon. You got it.
I just nervous I'm shaky.
Either go backwards. I actually prefer going forward on the steps, so then I can swing my foot over onto the ladder. I find that to be just a little bit easier.
Oh yeah, piece of cake.
You should have gone rock climbing with me in that.
Yeah.
I probably gonna pay at it. I'm like,
There you go. Yeah,
job.
give yourself some room.
And you know what? Coming back up this is so much easier.
Yeah.
This is really this is the part.
I'm conquering my fear of heights today because I want to see it so bad.
Yeah, she's been building herself up for this for a while.
So this is the last little tricky element.
Cool.
You're
Yeah,
good.
I was that one person that was trying so hard to get tickets and in a matter of what? A
Yeah,
second?
literal
Everything's
second.
gone?
Yep, yep.
Oh, man.
This
These
is so
will get a
cool.
lot easier in 2 days when Longhouse opens.
There's the original. I
Oh,
see it.
These are the
Oh my
original
gosh.
steps?
Isn't that cool?
So look through the
Look how
windows right
small
where
they
you
are.
and you can
Right
see the
where he
original steps there. So
That's
these probably
crazy.
were original, but they were carved on top of in order to
Right,
create
right,
this
right.
visitor trail.
That's awesome.
So originally people were just going down, up and down these to see this.
Yeah, so the stone carved steps are just so small. They're just rips.
When
Yeah.
they first rediscovered it in 1880,
Yeah, how small
did
those
they take this and
handholds
cast it
are.
down, or
So these
Um,
were original
did they
drills?
discover these
Weatheralls,
paths
yeah, the
later?
Weatheralls are with the ranching family
And then the
Yeah.
other ones are over here.
stumbled across these.
Wow.
And there's crazy pictures of them like lowering their younger brothers down
Oh
on
my
the
gosh.
ropes.
I wonder if
Like
they
over
did
the
ropes
cliff
from
edge.
up
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Weatheralls
That's
were
too cool.
a little crazy.
Did it. Did it.
That was the hardest part.
Yeah.
That was the
Very
hard part. It's
hard.
just a little hike from here.
I want to hug them. I know.
It is.
We couldn't even.
We tried,
For shadows.
press and say success.
We haven't seen success. We've tried and tried. Oh wow! Look at these old toe holes.